On today's show, Terry Stotts stepping down as a Milwaukee Bucks assistant coach after a weird incident took place at practice between him and head coach Adrian Griffin. Plus, how are Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard faring as the NBA's hottest new superstar duo? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. We've all been there. You're on a clunky ticketing app and you can't even tell what kind of seats you're getting, or this is my least favorite. You punch in all your information, you go to hit submit, and then for some reason it all erases and you have to redo it all. You don't have to deal with any of that fuss anymore with Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events happening near you. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. They've got all-in prices, and the total is up front, so you know exactly what price you're paying. You know you're getting a great deal without those hidden fees that pop up later on. You can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. It is that simple. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Bucks, Kane Pitman, who you can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Bucks. And Kane, a little bit of weirdness out of Milwaukee this past week. Terry Stotts stepping down as an assistant coach with the Bucks after an incident with Adrian Griffin at shoot-around or at practice. And it was kind of like this weird situation where apparently Griffin had, ended practice and, wanted the coaches to come over and do like a coaches huddle, and Stotts was like, no, I'm going to go talk to Dame and Giannis about the offense on this side of the court. And then there was like an altercation, and Griffin wound up yelling at Stotts to come over and join the coaches huddle. And those are kind of all the specifics we got in the reporting from Shams Charania of The Athletic. But I mean, is this a situation that should be worried about, or should there maybe be concerns? I kind of don't know how to tackle this situation. It was just kind of weird on all sides, right?
It was very weird, and it was very unexpected only a week before opening night as well. So just based on the pure timing of this event and Terry Stotts stepping aside, you can't say that it's ideal. Obviously, reading that report, I also find it pretty hard to believe that there was one argument between a head coach and assistant coach, and all of a sudden they part ways. Maybe there were some differences along the way, and maybe a potentially likely scenario is Terry Stotts has not been an assistant coach in the NBA for over 10 years. Maybe he got into the job, got into the grind, started to travel for some preseason games and thought, I'm not ready to be an assistant coach. Maybe he will be a head coach down the line. So there's lots of different ways that this could have potentially got to this point. But we'll say this, bringing in a first-time head coach, even someone with as much experience as Adrian Griffin has, there was certainly a level of excitement and maybe a little bit of comfort from Bucks fans knowing that you had someone with so much experience to the side of Adrian Griffin and Terry Stotts. So from that perspective, surely there are some Bucks fans that are a little disappointed with the result.
And I wonder too, ultimately, Damian Lillard has spoken about how this situation played out, and he's, expressed his, maybe not frustrations, but just that he's disappointed in how it worked out because he was excited to have Terry Stotts there, his longtime head coach from his Portland Trailblazers days, having a familiar face within the organization to help with this transition for him. So, hopefully this doesn't, adversely impact him and this transition now getting used to his new role with the Bucks.
It was interesting because Lillard obviously has only had 2 or 3 weeks in Milwaukee and 2 or 3 weeks with Terry Stotts, and he did say that, well, now I'm feeling a little more comfortable in my surroundings. It certainly helped for the first couple of weeks, but now we move on. But it's not like the Bucks hired Terry Stotts after they acquired Damian Lillard. It's not like Damian Lillard said, I want to go to Milwaukee to play under Terry Stotts, the assistant coach. So I don't think that that's going to matter ultimately too much for this team. But the big thing to look at will just be the offense. And Terry Stotts was tasked with running the offense for this team. And maybe it was going to help with some familiarity with Damian Lillard there, but what does the Bucks offense look like? And is this a big impact for the team and a big stress for Adrian Griffin? We might find out early in the season, depending on how they're looking.
And at this point, are there any plans? Do the Bucks have any plans to go out and source a new assistant in place of Terry Stotts, or are they just kind of playing things by ear at this point?
Yeah, it's interesting. There hasn't been too much out of Milwaukee so far, too much reporting, but we are of the understanding that it was the Bucks that perhaps liked the idea of having some veteran coaches alongside Adrian Griffin, whether it was Terry Stotts. Joe Prunty is still there as well, a long-time assistant and one-time interim coach of the Milwaukee Bucks a few seasons ago there as well. So there is still some experience, but it's tough. A week before opening night, there aren't too many teams that are generally looking for an assistant coach at this time of year. So it'll be fascinating to watch.
You mentioned the offense and, the role that Stotts was going to have in kind of orchestrating and conducting that offense for Milwaukee. I'm curious your thoughts on just to this point. We've seen them through a handful of preseason games, the NBA's new hottest duo in Giannis and Dame. How have they looked playing with one another through the preseason so far?
It's been a work in progress, it's fair to say. And look, they didn't play major minutes through the preseason, only 3 games together on the floor. So far, Dame has not been efficient scoring the ball, which I'm reliably told from many Portland Trailblazers reporters and fans that this happens every year in the preseason. It's fascinating because Dame says that he doesn't play 5-5 in the offseason. We know Giannis doesn't really work out with other players and get involved in these scrimmages. And I think they're both shaking off some of the rust so far and figuring out how to not step on each other's toes. And I think Damian Lillard in particular was definitely looking to facilitate a lot more. He was playing off the ball a lot more. And I think that he'll find his comfort zone and begin to become more aggressive, looking to score for this team. And that's ultimately when they're going to reach their true potential. When both Giannis and Damian Lillard feel comfortable playing aggressive basketball on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think it's quite there yet. But as we said, they've played a total of about 40 minutes together.
And out of those 40 minutes, though, and obviously some of it looking a little clunky with the rust and whatnot, any new wrinkles or any elements, between those two as a duo on the court that is, hey, like this is kind of new, or this is something that maybe they weren't able to do in the past with previous personnel?
Yeah, well, we've seen them both speak about it a lot, and there's been so much talk about what does the pick and roll game look like with Damian Lillard and Giannis. And I think it's going to be fascinating to watch the opposition defenses make choices and make decisions. And Giannis, after the first preseason game against the Lakers, was almost smiling and laughing, saying, I've never seen this before. They're double teaming one of my teammates from the first possession of the game in preseason. I'm catching the ball in the free throw line. And yes, the help is coming quickly, but I don't have 2 guys draped all over me while I'm trying to catch the ball. So I think both guys are going to find in stretches that they just have more space to room than more space on the floor to move than they've had in previous seasons. So certainly that pick and roll game is the feature. And the other point is whether it's Chris Middleton, who we only saw 10 minutes of in the preseason, Brook Lopez, Malik Beasley, who's been getting up a lot of threes. These other guys are getting wide open shots. Now, they haven't exactly knocked them down to this point, but you can see the idea of how this offense can function.
What do you envision being the biggest, or not necessarily envision, but what is just the biggest question for this Bucks team going into this season? Obviously, there's some, how does the Giannis Dame duo fit, right? Adrian Griffin is the first-time head coach. Like, what is the biggest question, though, for this team this year?
Certainly on the defensive side of the ball, you lose Jrue Holiday, who, in my opinion, is the best perimeter guard defender in the league. So if you take away Jrue Holiday, before that, the Bucks had Eric Bledsoe, and I know Eric Bledsoe is much maligned, but he was an all-defensive player during those years with the Bucks. So for the first time since Giannis has been in this MVP portion of his career and Brook Lopez has been there as an elite rim protector, the Bucks don't have an elite guard defender. They don't have one on the roster, and they're trying to mix and match now and see what the lineups look like. I think the 5th starter is going to be a question. It looks like maybe Malik Beasley is going to be that guy, but can Pat Connaughton get in the mix there? Is Jay Crowder going to be someone they look at? And Marjon Beauchamp in his second year, there is certainly a lot of optimism around him. So defensively, how this team can hold up on the perimeter is going to be a big watch.
Now, I know I teed you up there in the very beginning, Kane, as our Locked On Bucks expert, but unfortunately, you'll be passing along the reins to a pair of, can only guess, very accomplished, very capable hosts in your stead with your last episode coming this upcoming week. I believe you said something about the final post game, the opening night of the season, but give us your elevator pitch, your sales pitch for the new hosts of Locked On Bucks coming down the pipeline.
Well, I can only talk about my personal experience. And Jackson, you know this, doing a daily podcast, there are times when you're searching for someone to come onto the show and provide the insight. And I've spent a lot of my 4 years at Locked On in Australia due to travel restrictions and lots of reasons why I've had to leave Milwaukee. So Justin Garcia is on the Bucks Radio Network, pre and post game show and analyst in game. He's around the team. He's going to take over. And Camille Davis, who has been on Locked On Bucks for a number of years, hosts a number of other podcasts as well. She's very accomplished, big Bucks fan her entire life. So two people that are around the team and have saved me a lot over the last few years when I'm desperate for a co-host, and they would always come on. So I think the show is going to go to another level. I feel very confident that they will continue the trajectory.
Well, whatever happens with this Giannis Dame duo this season, you won't have us covered. Camille and Justin will have us covered. But Kane, thank you for your final pit stop here at Locked On NBA. Thanks so much for stopping by, man.
Always been a pleasure, man.